We can see that wxt framework already has a default icon and actually a default pop-up title, so maybe it's the perfect time to give it some better values. If I come to the wxt config, I can see that in the manifest I could probably add the name, tab notes, a version, just let's call it 1.0.0, and the description: add notes to any tab in your browser. Alright, I can already see it's tab notes, but it's still called default pop-up title, so actually it's not only changed there, but I go to the pop-up and I also need to change it here. This is one of those cases when it seems like I need to refresh, so I'll just stop and run again bun dev or np on dev or whatever you're using, and now it says tab notes. Perfect. But we wanted to talk about the icons, right? If I look at the output bundle, I can see that there are 5 sizes of the icon: 16, 32, 48, 96 and 128. And if I come to my public folder, I see that these files are there as well. So wxt framework just copies over the contents of this public folder into the output. This wxt.svg we will not need, and let's create 5 sizes for the icon. I already created 2 icons, one for the empty state and one when the page has notes assigned to it. I want to save the empty one as the icon. To create the 5 sizes, I can manually export them in 5 different sizes, which is not too complicated, or I can use a tool called Favicomatic.com. This tool basically generates icons in all the sizes that you ask them to. And if I look at my code base, I saw that I need 16, 32, 48, 96 and 128. The rest I can leave as it is, and I'll just drag it over. As you can see, it already downloaded the results in a zip, and if I open it, I can see that it has all the 5 files. Now there's a glitch because the 48 times 48 file is in an echo format, which is fine, but I need PNGs, so I have to still export it manually, which I did. I can just rename the files 16, 32, and copy them over instead of the current icons. I also created the 48 version, so I'll just copy and paste it as well. As you can see, this is another case when our extension broke, so I can just stop the dev command and start again. And very nice, we have this icon here. Not only here, but if I go to the Chrome extension page, I can see that that is the icon that is being used with the extension. So far so good. We replaced the generic icon with one that's more relevant to our extension, but what I really want to do is to have a different one that changes based on whether the given page has notes assigned to it or not. Let's see how to do it. I'll start by repeating the process with the resizing of the icons, and this time I will use my icon, which is the icon full. If I come back to the folder structure under public, I create a new folder called icon full, and I just copy those icons into this. Similarly, I created a full version of the 48 pixel that I also add. And if I look at my code base, I see that I have 5 icons for the normal version and 5 when there is content. So all is left to do is to write our JavaScript code that makes sure that these icons are updated based on the nodes. So let's start by creating a new method called changeIcon, which will be an async method, and it will take one parameter, which will be the tab ID, and it's a number. And first I will get the tab object based on the tab ID. This is a little bit different than querying the tabs because now I have the tab ID, so I can get that tab directly. browser.tabs.get, and the only parameter that I need to pass is the tab ID. And in that very unlikely case that the tab wouldn't be found, then I just return. This way we prevented any conflicts with TypeScript, so let's continue. I will use some redundancy because I want to reuse this function in some other places, so please don't kill me for that. First I load the nodes storage, then I get the key, which is underlined in red because it says the URL might not be there, so instead of checking the tab, I check tab.url. Now we can be sure that it's there. And finally I get the data for the key. Node data is either undefined if we haven't added any nodes for that given page, or it contains the object, and I can test for that. If node data, then we have nodes, otherwise nodes found. So I want to change the icon based on this behavior. We can do it by using the browser's action API. So let's see how it works. browser.action.setIcon. It's a method that has one parameter path, and instead of one path I will give 5 paths because we have the 5 sizes. So let's start by defining the path for 16. This was the icon full/16.png. I have a nice add-on in my code editor that shows the images if they are found, and I will just duplicate this 4 more times. 32, 48, 96 and 128, and of course the images should be also adapted. And now I just copy this over and change the icon from icon full to the regular icon when we do not have any contents. You can see there are all the empty ones and these are all the full ones. So let's save and see if it works. Oh no, I never invoked this method. You can see that it's still grayed out. So where do I want to change the icon? Actually, this is a good place after the node storage has been updated. Change icon, and here I already have a tab ID because the tab is already available. So I just pass in the tab ID. It says that it might be undefined, so maybe just to make TypeScript happier, I'm also looking for tab URL and tab ID, although it's most likely tab ID exists. Anyways, now we can check it in our extension. Maybe it's better to restart. My icon is empty, and if I start typing, then the icon changes to show that there are nodes for this specific page. But there is one problem. Even if I open a new page, the icon doesn't reset, even though there are no nodes for that given page. In the next lesson, we will see how to detect tab changes, so we can tell whether the new tab has or doesn't have any nodes. Should we continue?